Today there were a lot of topics that are going to be discussed. What, in your opinion, is the most challenging or important aspect of teaching classics these days?
Thank you for the introduction. I think that the biggest challenge nowadays is actually the combination of methods from the past. So we have a huge and a long tradition also in teaching classics. And that's a very valuable tradition. So the huge challenge would be the combination of these older elements with innovative methods. And as will be clear, I guess, from the presentations in this conference, is that sometimes in didactics, what seems to be new has actually been tried already in older times. So the whole method of what is called living Latin and living approach also to ancient Greek, that is actually a method that was already conceived in the 50s and the 60s in the context of a Danish language institute. So I think the big challenge would really be the combination of those two elements. And that's why we called it in Latin nova, which are new things, innovative things, et vetera, older things.
So there was a book presentation just now, and it's called Teaching Classics Worldwide. An interesting subject because teaching it worldwide is quite a challenge. What did you think of this book presentation? What, in your opinion, is the purpose, or what will it support?
So I think both the presentation and the book itself are just wonderful. And I'm really happy that this is a book that sort of came into existence thanks to the Euroclassica network. Sometimes you find out that it is already a challenge just to give an overview of classics teaching just in your country, let's say in Austria. How big is the challenge to give an overview of teaching classics worldwide? In 5 or 6 continents. And it took some 10 years for John Bowler and Steve Hunt, but they managed to do this. And so the proofs are there already, and the book will finally be out beginning of next year. So we're really proud of it, and we're really looking forward to reading the final result. The most surprising thing to me today on the presentation was to see that issues which are there, let's say in my countries, so I mean the Flemish part of Belgium and the UK where I mainly teach, that these problems are actually there all over the world. Problems, or perhaps rather challenges, for teaching of classics.
So how can classic studies be relevant and accessible these days?
Okay. I'm so glad you mentioned relevant. So many journalists will ask about usefulness. And then I always say that, of course, learning Latin and ancient Greek is useful to acquire other language skills. That is true, but this can also be said about studying German or Russian or whatever language. So it's much more. And for me, the relevance of studying classics is that it opens windows. It opens, if you want to call it, gates to all different kinds of civilization, culture. This is going from art to philosophy, about dealing critically with historical texts. It's about the art of communication, so about how to be persuasive, so the whole art of rhetorics. It's about understanding the roots of mythology, of religion. So I have been a secondary school teacher too before I went to university, and I always told my pupils, now is the time of your life, you being teenagers, to discover all these different, wonderful and sometimes surprising territories of civilization. And afterwards, when you're 18 years of age, you can basically choose whatever you want. But just take the opportunity, take the chance of just getting to know all these different kinds of all these different territories of civilization. And this can be done mainly, I think, throughout the direct access with ancient Greek and Latin authors. So it's both intellectually enriching, but also culturally a true treasury.
The methodology has to change for the new generations. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm talking about also digital technology that has an influence. Where do you see, the future in this?
Yeah, again, I think it's about combining both ancient and new methods. So I'm actually not a person who believes that we will ever do without books. I think in learning a language, books will always be a most valuable tool. But just think about acquiring a language through hearing it. If you look at what we have now the last 20 years on websites, on the internet, it's fantastic. I also firmly believe that if we make good use of artificial intelligence, which can also be a true danger, that is true, but if we make good use of it, it can also be used for didactical purposes. So I'm quite confident that we will survive as classics teachers. You know, that is interesting to think about the whole discussion about why study classics. And isn't this old-fashioned? This whole discussion started at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Beginning of the 19th century, there were already pedagogists saying, let's just get rid of these ancient languages. Why don't you study economics? Why don't you study technology in order to become an engineer? Well, classics are still there. Classics are always dying, but they never really die.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.